Hey everybody, welcome. It is Wednesday. That means we are live for another masterclass session. Today we're going to be focusing on creating a book battle map. That's basically we're going to be creating a book and then the battle map that's going to be on top of it. In the first part, we'll be showing you how to make the book using the line and shape tools. And then in the second part, we'll be showing you how to populate that map or that book with stamps. And we're going to be doing the fantasy battle map style, though you could do this with any style. If you prefer watercolors, you could make the book with the watercolor style. If you prefer fantasy battle maps, you could do that too. Totally up to you. It's very easy to do. So let's just jump right in. The first thing we'll want to do is we're going to want to create a new map, and we're going to go fantasy battle maps. Again, if you prefer it to be like maybe you're making not a battle map but a city map on top of a book, you would use watercolor cities. If you were making a fantasy regional one, then use that, right? So it's up to you to decide what you want. We're using fantasy battle maps, remember that. So we're going to choose the style. Just choose your regular landscape, and then I'm going to edit in 4K. Just remember 4K is a little taxing on your machine. If you don't have a higher end machine or a very strong machine, I recommend that you maybe edit in maybe 2 or 3K instead, okay? And so first step is I'll make my background black. It's just something that I always do. Hey, Savanth, or I'm sure I pronounce your name, but hey, welcome. Glad that you are here. Awesome. Love new people. Let's go ahead and go to color. Hey, Tang Whistle. Awesome. Weistel. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. Let's go ahead and fill in the background. There we go with black. Next step is I'll use the grid. I'm going to turn a grid on. It'll be helpful. I'm going to go to 20. So I'm going to go half. And then now I have this easy grid to use. And the reason why I'm turning the grid to these big cells is because I want to be able to use the grid to help me make the book and to know where the center part is, or what's called the binding. So now that I've done that, I'll go to my shape tool. And for stroke, I'm going to choose a stamp. I'm going to choose like maybe this wooden one right here, or you could use like something from a ship. You could choose whatever you want. There's a lot of different stamps you can choose from. Let's use this wooden one. I think this should be fine. Let's go with this one. That works. We're going to go with a rectangle shape. And for fill, let's go with pick a color palette. So when you're deciding which kind of color you want the book to be, you need to decide what's going to be on the battle map first. So if you're making a battle map that's maybe in the woods, then maybe you want to make a green and red, or green and yellow, or green, whatever color, red, whatever it is you want it to be, right? If you're making a battle map that's on a volcano, maybe you want to use red and yellow. Or if you're making a battle map that's in the ocean, maybe the book cover or the book should be a bluish color, right? So when you're deciding the design and the color palette for the book, that really determines on what you're putting on the book. Now I'm going to start with a very basic color palette of just blue and gold. So I'll have a blue will be the color of the book part, and then the framing with the corner protectors will be like a gold color. So first I'll place down. I'm going to snap to grid like this, and you can see that I can snap it like there. And then I'm also going to turn off the shadow for this, because there's no need to have that on. And then I'm going to change the let's see here. Let's change the color. So I'll boost the saturation all the way up. And then I can go through the hue and kind of get the color that I want. So I can go with brightness. Let's go with a little bit more reddish in it. So now that I have that color, there we go. Awesome. Now I have that part. And then the next step is I want to choose like a fill. Remember, I'm going with blue and gold. So let's choose the fill. And you know what works really, really well is these carpets. And maybe this texture right here might work really well. We'll turn the grid off so you can kind of see it. These are kind of small, so let's maybe make it a little bit bigger. So we'll go with the fill texture. Let's maybe go with 150. I think that looks about good. And then what I'll do is I'll bump the saturation and bring the brightness down. The reason why I'm doing that is because the gold color is so bright. And so what would be nice is a contrasting darker blue. Kind of makes sense, right? Hey, first time chatter, glad that you are here. Yeah, 7 Days of Pro. Yep, definitely check out that trial. If you missed the link, you go over to our support group, support chat, and we'll help you out to get that free access, all right? Okay, so we got that blue. I think that looks good. The next thing I might want to do also is maybe give it some more details, so maybe adding corner protectors. So what I'll end up doing is go to Fantasy World, And there's some nice frame pieces that I could use for that. Exactly. Like these right here, these frame caps, these are perfect. So I'll turn my snap to grid off. I'm going to turn off my shadow, and I'll have to adjust this probably a little bit to kind of get the right color that I want. So I'll go to advanced settings. I'm going to bump the saturation, and I'll change the hue till I get that yellow color. Let's bump the saturation even more up. There we go. And then I'll just copy and paste onto these corners. These are what are called corner protectors on a book. And what I want to do is I want to have some of it overlap like this. So it's not perfectly lined up, but have some of it overlap on the outside. Copy, paste, and just put one on each corner. Hey, Allie Loves History. Welcome. I'm glad that you're here. The more, the merrier, right? Yeah, book battle maps are awesome. I find that these kind of maps are particularly helpful, like at the beginning of a campaign, like where you might put a campsite or a tavern. They're also great for if you have a book-themed campaign where your whole campaign takes place on a series of pages within a book. I've done that before. So there's a lot of different things that you can kind of do with this. And I think that's kind of fun. Now that we've finished that part, we can kind of call it create group. And this whole thing is just going to be called the hardcover. Okay, so that part's done. And then what I generally do is I'll push it all the way down to layer -5. And then I'll lock it so that way I don't accidentally select it. Because now that we've finished that part, we're going to work on the second part, which is actually making the book, so the pages of it. And so what I need to do is find I need to find the center of this book. So I'll change my grid to white, like this. And then from here, I can kind of turn the grid down a little bit. And then you have to do a little bit of counting here. And I want to find center. So I'll go ahead and choose a color for this. It's going to make a line that starts at the top and then goes to the bottom. I'll put snap to grid so that it snaps on there. There we go. Perfect. Take a step back. And I can just kind of count how many I have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Okay, I think that about looks right. So each 9 on each side. So now I've got my, what's called the spine. This is where the spine is. Let's go ahead and turn that off. So now that we've established where the spine is, we can start creating the pages part. So now we're gonna have to go back and we're gonna have to do some changes with the shape. So I'm gonna choose maybe a black color for the line. And what we'll do is we're gonna make the pages. And I'm gonna use a fantasy world texture. I'm going to use this land gray for right now. And let's actually use the fill clip mask for this. And I'm going to quickly check to see what color the fill is. That works out fine. Perfect. There we go. All right. Now with the pen, with the shape tool, and we're going to turn snap to grid off so it doesn't kind of snap to it. I'm going to go ahead and hide some of this stuff on here so we can kind of see more what we're doing here. There we go. Perfect. We're going to start over here. And when you click and hold like this, you can actually change some curve. So I want a little bit of a curve. Now you might be wondering like, well, wait a second. This is top down, right? So should there be a little bit of perspective here? I'm going to say yes, because it's hard to visualize to the players or the people who are playing on the map that they're on top of a book, right? And so to convey that this is a book, we're going to add a little bit of perspective, just a tiny, tiny bit, by adding some of the front face of the book where you can see some of the pages, okay? Because we want to be able to see a little bit of perspective. I want to telegraph correctly that there are some pages here. So next I'll go ahead and go up here like this. And what's cool is that you can go over here to right over to here, and then you can click hold and it will curve a little bit more like this. Now, when you do this, this is an easy fix. You're going to click this, press enter, like that. And you're going to notice that there's a little bit of line right here that's in the way. That's okay. Don't worry about that. You just go right over here, go over to the brush, go to subtract, and just remove that section. There you go. So super easy. Now, this is on a clipping mask, this page right here, because now it should be able to pick up whatever's on the FG layer, and you can paint whatever on top of it. Now here's the next step. We're going to copy and paste that whole group, And then we're going to flip it, and then we're going to line them up just like this. Okay. And then once we've done that, we're going to line it up nice and neatly. And then I'm going to merge these two pages together. So that way they're one whole page. So I'll go back, go to add, do the brush, and just go like that, and it will merge them. There we go. So now my page is merged. What I might want to do is to save that little light, this little line right here to kind of represent the spine. We're going to get into a lot more. There's a lot to cover here. There we go. All right, cool. All right, so now I want to make sure that I have the spine there, and that's been selected. Let's also create a little bit more perspective. Let's scale this whole thing down a little bit, just a little bit, so I have a little bit of room. I'm going to scale it up this way, and then we're going to add in that next part. Let's push this up a layer, and let's do the second part. I'm going to go back. I'm going to turn merge shape off, or you can just lock the top page. It's up to you. For right now, I'm going to turn merge shape off, and I'm going to choose clip mask. I'm going to choose a texture. I'm going to use this land gray. And this is going to represent the pages, not the top two pages, but the pages beneath them. And we're not going to worry about using a clipping mask because only the two open pages of the book should have a clipping mask. All right, so what I'll end up doing now is go to the shape tool, shape to put the pen, go down one layer so it's below this thing. And what I'll do is I'm going to create a little bit of perspective. This is easy to do. I'm going to go here, click here, go down this way. Let's make sure that it's flat. There we go, straight, all the way across. We can add a little bit of perspective here, I think, or we can just go all the way across. It's up to you. Go up like this, and then go across just like that. Press enter, plus, there we go. Okay. And now you have that under part. Now here's the thing. We maybe want to change that. That's a little too dark. Let's go with this. Let's go with a lighter gray instead. Oh, brightness is down. That's why. There we go. I think that looks good. Let's just take a step back and look at it. Yeah, that looks good. Cool. And what I'll do is I will change. I'm going to change this part right here. This little line right here. Oop, I'm having a hard time here. So I'm going to go click this right here and just click that. Oops, wrong one. This one. There we go. And I'm going to change this line to a black dashed line. That way it's a little bit easier and it's not kind of blocking the way. And then I can increase the size a little bit. There we go. Perfect. And I'll scale it up. And then I'm going to keep this because I want to use this as a guide. Because what we're going to do is we're going to paint on some shadow work so that it all fits on there. Okay. All right. Next part, let's go ahead and lock. Let's perhaps lock all this stuff. Let's lock this. Lock. And now it's not accidentally selected. And we can start building in the hints of a page. Okay. And when I say pages, I mean the lines. And the cool thing is that you don't have to visualize or show every single line for every single page. You just need to show a couple lines just to represent that there are pages. It's a way of simplifying it so you're not doing as much work. So we'll go in, we'll choose the line that we want. I'm going to go with a black line. And I'm going to bring the size down, and I'm going to bring the opacity down maybe a hair. I don't know. Let's take a look. Let's create a line here. Go this way. That looks good. And then I'll just start taking this, and you just hold like this. Okay, there we go. And I can put a series of these on here to create a couple. You don't have to create all of them. Just create a little bit. One there. And then let's put another one over like right here. Oopsie, let's go with this one right here. There we go. And like I said, you don't have to have all of them, just some of them. Oopsie, that's a little too high up. My bad. Go. Okay. And then we also want to create the pages going across like this. My bad. Like that. There we go. And then I'm just going to copy and paste that and just put it over here. There we go. So again, just a little bit of perspective because, again, it's going to be hard to kind of show that it's a book. So I think that's important. Okay, and let's go ahead and just take these, copy, paste, and I'm going to group it. So create group, just press G. It should create the group and then flip this whole thing. And this way you can put it on this side, like that. Over to there. Okay, on that page. And then we'll add in the last little bit of lines right here. We can add 2 or 3 or however many you want. It doesn't really matter. You can put on 2, 3, 4. You can even make them dashed lines. If you prefer to have it that way, you can. It's up to you. I mean, you can even have some of the lines that connect to each other. So notice that I don't have any connected lines in here. So if I want, I can put a line in here and then connect it to right there. So that way there's some kind of connecting line. So I can kind of do that. There's all these different things that you can kind of do. Just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, let's unlock everything except for the hardcover. I'll relock that. And now this part is almost done. Next, we need to do the lighting. And so the way that I do the lighting is I'm going to use the shape tool for this. And so what I'll do, oh yeah, I should, let's go in here, shape tool. Let's turn the stroke off, choose fill color black. And then blur. And what I'll do is I'm going to quickly just place this. Let me make sure that I just lock everything here. I don't accidentally select anything. I'm going to choose the brush option. I'm just going to put one stroke down like this just to kind of edit it. I'm going to bring my blur as far as up I can get it. I'm going to bring my opacity all the way down. Bring it down quite a bit. About that far. And then also I'm going to change the blend mode to overlay. So that way it kind of blends in more. There we go. And so now I have that nice color there. Okay, I think that looks good. Perfect. Let's do that. And now I'm going to go ahead and paint my shadow work. So first I'll start with the center of the book. There should be some shadow in the center where the crease is, right? That's step 1. So we'll add that. And then one thing I can do is you'll notice that it kind of overlaps over here. That's okay. You're going to merge shape, subtract. And then that way the shadow doesn't show up on that part of the book. Same thing here. Remove that shadow. Let's put another one of those shadows down. So I'll turn merge shape back off again. And let's make the crease a little bit smaller. Like this. One more crease going in here a little bit. Oops, I've got to set to subtract. My bad. My mistake. You got to switch back to add. There we go. Okay. I think that looks okay. There we go. So now you have the shadow from the crease, and then we maybe want to put one more shadow on over here on each side to kind of show that the pages is kind of bent upward a little bit. So I'll go ahead and put a little bit of a shadow right here. My mistake. Wrong one. Right here. This one. One moment. Just going to put it right here like this. And of course, if you see an error, you can always just go back and subtract and just kind of make sure that it doesn't overlap onto the page at all. Oopsie, not that much. There we go. There we go. And I feel like that's a little too much, so I'll bring the opacity down just a hair. There we go. And then I could probably go ahead and put one more on the other side. Just don't forget add. There we go. We're going to go to subtract. And then we'll add one more thing, and that's going to be the highlights. And so fill color white. Oopsie, my mistake. Fill color white with overlay, and then put that on the center of the page. Kind of like this. Oopsie, set to subtract again. Silly me. There we go. And then we have a little bit of a lighter color right here. Copy, paste. We'll just put it right over here on this side. There you go. And so now you have a little bit of light work and shadow work. Great. Okay. And now I can just unlock everything, but I want to lock the frame. Lock. Create group. And we're going to call it pages. There we go. Where are we at for time? 19 minutes. Didn't take very long to make this at all. That's great. Easy stuff. Yep, it's a book, Kellum. Cool. Easy stuff. Let's also just use a different texture for the top part. I just want you to see what it looks like. So I can go ahead and throw down a little bit of a color here. It's a little too bright. Let's maybe bring it down a little bit more because the lighting is at work. Remember, one thing I mentioned about blend modes is that they don't work very well with black and white. So this needs to be an off-white kind of color. So I'm going to bring the brightness down and we can take a look at it. And you can see the shadow work show up more now. You notice that? So now you can kind of see what the book looks like as if it was like a book with the color and the shadowing and everything. And then I can go ahead and lock all of that. And then you can add in a couple more things. I always recommend like an off-white again. So let's go ahead and maybe throw on maybe a little bit more details, like maybe there's a couple things you can do since we have time. You can add in a rug think of a like a bookmark. So you can like fit this in one of these pages right here. If you want to, maybe you want a series of bookmarks like this, have them overlapping each other. My only suggestion would be is the ones that are below, make them a little bit darker. There you go. And then you have a series of bookmarks that you want to put in there. You can do that. You can also use a tassel bookmark, if you've ever seen that before. We can go over here and type in rope. And then you can make your own tassel. So I can take this tassel, make sure it's up a layer, and then I just place it like this, and then have it go down like this. Oopsie, I'm noticing that it's too small. Let's go way up, and we'll bring the layer up as well. Oop, the opacity's down. There we go. Let's bring the scale up, and you can kind of create like a tassel to represent the bookmark. Just you could add some details on the edge of it, on the end of it, as like a design piece. Not sure. We could kind of take a look at what we got here. Let's see here. Oh, you know, there's a bunch of things that you could do. Like we could take a boulder. And then kind of exactly the bead. I like that idea. Exactly. You read my mind. Let's go ahead and make sure. Let's also take this and we'll bring the brightness down on this a little bit. I think it's a little too bright because the paper is so bright. I think making it a little bit darker would be a good idea. And then what we'll do next is we'll take the rope and I'm going to make a series of little tassels that kind of go on it. So I can go like this. And what I'll do is I'll take my pen. I'm going to do free draw, and I'm just going to draw several bits of tassels going on it. Let's go with the proper layer here. There we go. Oopsie, not right. Got to go up a layer. Where is that? There it is. Okay, cool. And I'm going to create a series of ropes that kind of go like this. And we're going to hide those tassels too. Don't worry about that. But this is going to kind of act as like little tassels. And then I'll take that same thing right here, copy, paste, the same boulder, put it on top, and then go to normal lighten, like that. And then that looks like the tassels are kind of a part of it. We can push this up just a little bit further so you can kind of see the tassels that goes all the way up to here. So you can kind of see that. So there's all kinds of options and things that you can do. I personally like both. I like the tassel on top of the red rugs that kind of fit into it. Like I like that too. So it's really up to you on how you want to go about doing that. I think it's pretty easy to put together. Pretty easy stuff. I think I'll go with these red things for now. That's a good stuff, but we won't even worry about the tassel. But you get the idea on how it works. Bring the brightness down on the deeper ones. Make some, like you can also make them different colors too, which would make it more interesting. Like one can be red, one can be green, one can be blue. So you can have a series of stuff. Like let's say that you don't know what color one to have. Let's say that you're on a desert or you're in an orc place, then make it red. If it's going to be maybe the ocean, make it blue. If it's in a forest, make it green. So you kind of get the kind of concepts on how to put that together. One other thing that you can do, which is nice, is that the paper doesn't have a paper look to it yet. So the last element you can add to it to give it that look is to go into your filters, texture filter, open up the catalog and go to Fantasy World. And there's something called leather. And what leather will do with the overlay blend mode is it's going to give it this more leathery kind of feel to it. Go to repeat and just bring the size down. And what this will do is it's really going to give it that papery kind of look. And I'll bring the opacity down a little bit. But there you go. So now you've added that last part. You've added that kind of paperish look. And then the shadows also kind of stay there as well. They're not completely removed. So after that, we'll go ahead and save it. And we're going to call it book. There we go. Yep, or you could use watercolor paper filter. Yep, Allie, that makes total sense. So many ways, so many filters. There's so many ways to do this. So it's really up to you and how you want to go for it with that. Okay, so now that you've done that part, you've made the book. My recommendation is to like save it, close out, and then make a series of clones of this so that way you don't have to make a new book for every single battle map that you make for your campaign. So instead, you'll just clone it and then you'll change the colors of the book as you go. So in other words, always have one template clone available to you so that way you don't have to like, oh no, I don't have a template. Now you'll have to go back and clone one, delete all the stamps, retexture. You don't want to do all that stuff. Always have a spare clone template, one of these things with you. I usually make like 3 or 4 because I'll make a mistake and be like, oh no, I used the last template to make this thing. So don't make that mistake. Just make a bunch of clones so that way you'll always have a template available to you, okay? All right, so now to choose a battle map. Okay, and the way that I usually choose this is what are you using it for? If I'm making it for, let's say, the beginning of a campaign, then a lot of campaigns start at a tavern, they start in a camp, and because it's already 3:30, or at least my time, PST, we're already 30 minutes in, we're going to make an easy battle map on top of it. So this part is less about making the book and more about populating the book itself. So this is kind of just the battle map part. And this is pretty easy. You pick that theme, right? I'm going to choose a forest theme because I want my campaign to begin maybe in the woods, maybe in a campsite. And so what I'll do is I'll go back to fantasy battle maps and I'll choose like, let's do foreground, because remember, it's on the foreground. So any texture I choose is going to show up on the foreground layer. And it won't show up on any part of the map. Won't show up on the background layer. Won't show up on the pages, the other pages. So that FG layer is super important that you make it that way, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to choose some forest textures. Usually I just type in forest, and that way all the forest textures that I want to use are going to be there. And we'll start with a base texture. So the base texture is just going to be this brown dirt kind of floor with moss and stuff. And then we'll add more texture on top of it. You always start with the first base texture and then you build layers on top of it. Just like if you were a painter, you paint different layers of paint on top to kind of get the blending. Next step is you choose a center point on the map. And when you think about a campsite, a great center point is going to be the fire, right? So the fire pit. Now, if you're worried about scale, then just turn that grid back on so that way you can see the scale. So I can turn this back on and then I have some scale. And I think this is pretty decent. It's about 20 cells across, about 18 cells across. That's 18 times 5. So that's a decent amount of distance. So this is not a small battle map. It's a decent size. And what I'll do is I'll choose a center point. And if you don't like that the grid's in the way, you can always just turn the grid opacity down so that way it's barely there. Normally what I do is once I've placed the first stamp, which is this camp right here, it's already established. This camp ring is about 5 feet wide. It's pretty big. Okay, that's a very big camp ring. But it's established the scale for me. So now I don't have to use the grid anymore, right? I now know that when I want to know what 5 square feet is, that campfire right there is going to be my guide. So whenever you place the first stamp, that's your reference for the rest of your stamps. Helpful, right? Then I'll start putting some stuff around the campfire. Like maybe I want to place some logs, right? I'll start building out from the fire pit and then move out from there. So I'll put in that. Maybe I want to also put in some bedding, right? Some camp bedding. That's not a bad idea. So I can place a couple of those. Maybe I'll place them over here. In fact, I'll switch them around because when I think about where I sleep in a forest, I'm going to think about where my defensive spots are. Because this is more open on the left side, I'll put the beds on this side. And I'll place the heads facing towards the fire so they can see any intruders that might be coming. I'll put 3, but you can put as many as you want. Depends how many people are in your party. And I'm not going to have them all perfectly faced. I'll actually put some closer together and some not. And what that will do is it's going to also be a little more helpful. I don't want it to be perfectly spaced, perfect symmetry. Have some be close together, have some be further apart. Next thing I'll do is maybe I want to put something underneath the campfire, like maybe some stone, so that way I don't catch the ground on fire or anything. Let's do some fun edgy brush. If you're not familiar with the edgy brush, it's a really fun brush to use. It's just that you have to bring the opacity down, because if you don't, the edges are not soft, they're hard. And so you have to bring the opacity down to adjust for that. I generally do about 20 to 15 or 15 to 20. And then I'll just go ahead and paint on top, maybe a little bit of stone. And in fact, those look a little too big. Those stones are really big. They're like 3 feet stones. Those are pretty big. So what I'll do is I'll bring the texture scale down a little bit. There we go. And then I'll just go ahead and put a little bit of stone around the campfire. That looks good. And then what I can do is I can also make a little guide. And what I'll do is I'll have a little road that kind of leads somewhere like this. So I'll have a little bit of road. And what's nice about this is now this road is going to be a guide to place stamps around it. And I want some of the road to be broken up a little bit. So I'll kind of remove a little bit here and I'll remove a little bit here. And this is how you kind of create this illusion that the road has been kind of worn a little bit by kind of breaking up parts of it. So there's that step. Next part is I might want to add a little bit of a darker shadow around it. So I'll take that texture, bring the brightness down so it's nice and dark. Let's make sure that's right. Bring the opacity down. And then along the edges here, I'll go ahead and just kind of line it with a little bit of a darker texture here. That way the road is kind of clear. There we go. I have a little bit of the road there. That looks good. All right. Now I'll quickly just take a step back. Let's go ahead and save at 124 changes. After that's saved, we'll go ahead and put on the rest of the stuff. One of the really, really cool things about creating the book too and giving yourself a little bit of negative space around the edges, you notice that you can see some black around it, is that you can overlap things. And I can tell you right now that overlapping is a great way to create depth. So I'll type in tree. And one thing I can do is I can take a tree and then put all the way up at layer +5, and I'll put them on the edge like this, maybe lining the camp. And you'll notice that they overlap onto the black part, and that immediately kind of creates some contrast there. Very nice, very helpful, right? That's useful. I'll turn the shadows off for now because we'll use them later. So I'll go down a layer. Let's make sure that my pages, let's go all the way down to layer -5 as well. There we go. Okay. Now that I have those, cool trick. Now I can go in and take the same tree, go up a layer, turn the shadow off, and then bring the brightness up like this. It has to be bright enough to where it sticks out. So you have to make sure that it contrasts against the lower part. So that's bright enough to where it looks like the top part of the tree, if that makes any sense. So I'm putting in a little bit of a lighter part to show the top part of the tree. So it kind of looks like a pine tree or some kind of coniferous tree, right? Where it's got different layers like a dress that kind of go up. And so you can create as many layers as you want going up, and it kind of creates this illusion of depth. Now I can select one, go to select all, then go to shadow, custom object shadow. And then from here, you can decide where the light sources are. There is a campfire there. So for now, I'll just create what's called the ambient occlusion. That means the dark shadow that's just going to make it pop out more. You see that light shadow or that light stamp, that light tree segment on top created the illusion of depth, but the dark shadow as well caused the trees to pop out. So that helps. So there you have all that. So that's good. So now we can keep kind of going with it. Some other things you might want to do is maybe you want this campsite to be defensible, right? Like maybe you're going to be attacked in the beginning. So let's maybe create like a log that goes across like this, maybe right where the that line is here. And by doing that, it will break up that line because it looks weird to have this dashed line right here. The trick to parchment maps, by the way, Karushia, is that you want to use some of the parchment world and the fantasy world filters like old leather, old paper, use those kind of filters to make a more parchment feel to your map. So I'm going to go ahead and place this log right here, and the log is going to block or cover up some of the line right there. And that's good because it looks kind of weird to have this dotted line in the center, right? So this will kind of break that up. It's going to be functional and it's going to be visual, right? The function is that this is going to be like a bulwark or some kind of defense position or choke point. So when people come to attack, they'll have to go over this log, and you can use it to take cover. You can use it to jump off of and attack your enemies. All of these cool things that you can do. So I generally try to add a lot of things that players can interact with. Combat can be can be repetitive when you don't add in what's called interactive environment, right? An environment that your players can immerse themselves in and use to their advantage, right? So throwing in some of these logs right here is a great way to kind of interact with. And I'll put another one maybe right here. Let's just make sure that it's down a layer, so you show this beneath layer 5. We don't want them there. Another choke point right here. That looks good. We'll add those. And then we can also throw in some stumps. Really cool trick is maybe you want to show the stump of a tree. You can take a stump, make sure it's below, and then just have it right underneath of the tree like this, and you can use it to represent the stump. So kind of a nice little trick that you can do there. I can put it, actually I think the bigger one would work better here, like this one. There we go. So you got a nice stump there here as well. Let's add another stump right here. There you go. So now you kind of have this cool effect where you have the stump itself with the big branches from the stump going down in the roots going down in the ground, as well as the various layers of the canopy or various layers of the coniferous tree that we're building here. So very, very helpful tricks there. I'm also going to have the wood here kind of match a little bit more of the wood that's there because it kind of makes sense, right? When you're building a fire or you're using some wood to sit on, it's probably going to come from the wood that's in the area that you're working in, right? Or that you're cutting down trees. So what I want to do is I'll probably change the brightness down a little bit, and I'll probably change the hue so I can get a little bit of that red. There we go. And now it looks like the wood that I cut for those seats came from the trees around us. Now, if you're going to have cut wood like that, it only makes sense to maybe throw in some stumps, right? Where did that cut tree come from, right? Just use some basic logic, right? Where did those trees come from? So we'll take these right here. We'll add a little bit of red to it. We'll bring the brightness down just a little bit. And then I'll place a couple stumps. So one looks good there. We'll put one over here as well. Let's add another one right there. And let's add a couple over here. And then always make varying sizes. So let's have maybe a medium-sized one and a small one over here. And then maybe some tiny ones just kind of randomly over here, stuff like that. So throwing in a couple, right? So we got that. Okay. 44 changes. We're doing good. Okay. So some other things that we want to do is we want to throw in more trees, but let's maybe throw in different types of trees, right? A forest, it generally is a mix of trees. Obviously, there can be trees that are specifically coniferous and specifically deciduous, but I find that mixing trees in is a great way to kind of make it more interesting. So we'll type in tree, and then we'll go ahead and use this one right here. So we got some trees here. Corners are a great place. One thing I recommend is don't cover up every corner because I really like those corner protectors. So don't hide some of those corner protectors. Make sure some of them show. So if I put one right here, like this, and then this way I can kind of see that beautiful corner protector, right? What's the point of having a beautiful book if you can't see some of its beautiful elements, right? So be sure to not cover up all of the corners. Have some corners available so you can see it. Let's put another one right here. I think that looks good right there. And I kind of like the varying greens, but you can always change the hue if you want it to be a more saturated green. Because right here, they're kind of a muted green with a little bit more yellow. You can always make them more green by just changing the hue about 20 points or so. Kind of a cool thing that you can kind of do there. So don't forget that. And I'm going to flip this around. We'll go facing this way. And you can do that same trick that I mentioned. Remember, you can have varying parts. So if you want, you can take another part of the tree, make it a smaller one, push it up a layer, then go up to brightness, put it right on top like this, and then you have those brighter elements. on top. Remember, don't hide the thing right there. There we go. So you can kind of add in more depth there with varying color. And then, of course, I want to select both of these. And then I want to mess with the shadows. We're going to create the ambient occlusion. We'll paint in the other shadow work later. For now, just the ambient occlusion so that they'll pop out. You don't have to paint in all that extra shadow work. That is up to you and how much detail you want. Obviously, the more detail you do, the better the map is going to be, the more believable it will be, the more intriguing it will be. But that is up to you and how far you want to go, what your skill level is, and what you're comfortable with, okay? And then just like before, we can throw in some of these stumps right underneath because I really like these stumps. These look good, but I don't want it to be the exact same wood color. So I can go in and change it like this, and then I'll maybe even change the brightness a little bit. And in that way, it's not the exact same color as the other one, just to denote that there's a different type of wood, right? Because I don't want to use the exact same. Okay, 60 changes, we're doing good. Let's go ahead and continue adding more stuff to this. Right now we have a lot of trees, but what we don't have are bushes, right? You would expect some shrub on the ground. And so what we'll do is we'll type in bush. And we'll throw in a series of stuff, some with some flowers, some with not. So I'll throw in some flowers here, one there, one here. Let's maybe put some here along this edge, maybe some along here, and then we'll put some in this corner right here, or it overlap a little bit so that way it kind of hides some of the line. And then maybe we'll put some in this corner right here. And then don't forget to put some underneath the trees to show more overlap. You definitely want to show overlap, so maybe put some underneath the trees. I think that's always a good idea. I don't really like that right there, so we'll remove that. Let's just put one right here. Okay, so those bushes look good. Let's go ahead and throw in some more stuff. Let's throw in some of these, this forest floor plants. These look good. Let's take it down a layer. And whenever I place these down, I'm going to go with a little trick that I always do. Place one big one here and there. So I'll place some big ones here and there. Here and there. And then after I do that, I'll place some medium-sized ones here and there. And I'll try to cluster them. Plants have a way of like clustering together. So medium-sized ones, and then we'll bring it down another layer, and then we'll put some medium-sized ones. There we go. Or some small ones. Sorry, not medium. Some small ones. And I'm even going to change the hue a little bit of these because these are a kind of a bright green. They don't seem to match with the ground underneath, so I'll select all. And I'll change the hue a little bit. So it kind of gives me a more yellowish color. And I'll bring the saturation down and I'll bring the brightness down a little bit. There we go. And now it kind of matches in a little bit more with the grass there. Let's go ahead and throw. Now, you can also throw down details without having to throw down all these stamps. So another really great forest texture, which I really like, is this one right here where it has forest floor and it has already some fallen logs and stuff in it. So I'll bring the opacity up. I'll check the scale to make sure the scale is right. And then what I can do is I can go in right here like this and just paint in these little areas right here. And what you'll get, let's do with a soft brush instead of the edgy brush. And what you can do is you can fill in the negative space with that texture. So now you don't have to put down all these extra stamps because it's just extra work, right? When you have to put down all these extra stamps, you're giving yourself more work. So give yourself less work by using textures that have a lot of effects or artifacts like these logs right here. So that was kind of helpful to fill in that space. Now I'll quickly save it. Where are we at for time here? 44, perfect. We're going to add in the last bit of details. One thing I'm kind of noticing is that there's almost no color. And I don't like that. I want to add in some color because forests aren't just green and brown, right? And color will help to make this map pop out a little bit more. So what we can do is we can throw in maybe some flowers that will kind of help to make it pop out more. So for instance, like maybe I want to type in some purple here. I can do that. Let's see here. I like the reds. Let's put down some reds. Let's see. This one right here. Is that a potted plant? Let's go with this poppy flower. Let's do that instead. Looks good. What I'll do is I'll choose, let's see here. Let's make a bush and then we'll put the plants on top of it. 1 second here. Let me type in bush. And I don't want one flowers. Let's use this one. And I'm going to place a couple. I don't want to like super saturate it with hundreds and hundreds of flowers. So I'm just going to make a couple. So I'll put one here, one right there, and then maybe one over here. Oh, let's actually put some together. Like one right here as well. There we go. And then I can go in and put some flowers on top of that bush. That could be a rose bush if you want. So you could throw on some red flowers. Remember the trick, throw on some bigger ones here and there. And then make some smaller ones here and there, medium size. And then put some small ones in. So just go down another size, scale them down real small. There you go. Okay, and you'll notice that adding in a little bit of red kind of broke up a lot of that. And you can add in as much color as you want. Maybe you want to add in some purple flowers. Maybe you want to add in blues and yellows. All these different colors that you can do. So be creative. Think about how you want to put it together. Lots of fun, different ways to kind of go about doing it. So let's go ahead and put in, now that I've kind of showed you the color part, I'd use flowers for that. Now let's go put in the light sources, add in the shadow work and the lights, and then we're going to call it good because we're already at 46 minutes. So I'm going to type in light source or just light, and we'll start with this. A cool little trick is overlapping light stamps. Overlapping light stamps is a great way to kind of create more dynamic lighting. So I'll place one orange one right where the fire is itself. And then I'll take another light stamp, a bigger one, layer 4, or I'll take it up a layer and then put that on top like that. And now you have some dynamic lighting. So you have an orange one, and you can go the other way too. Like maybe I want the orange one to be dominant. So I just put the orange one on top. Oopsie, not that one. My mistake. There we go. Go up. There you go. If you prefer that instead. And now I've established a light source. And now that I've established that, I can start painting in some shadow work, right? I'll use the top layer for this, but you could use whatever layer that you want. I'm going to choose color. I'll go with black, but you could also use a dark green, or you could, if you want to be super artistic, you could use different colors like purple, red, whatever you want. I'm going to go with just a super duper dark green. There we go. And whenever you're painting with the top layer, opacity down around 30 or so, between 25 and 30. And now that I've established my light source, I can start painting the shadows. So I'm on top layer here, and I'm just going to paint the shadows being facing away from the fire, as you would kind of expect, right? Put a little bit of shadow here as well. Put some shadow along here. Shadow along here. Of course, where this stump is. We'll put one right here where this stump is. One right here, here. And then, of course, where these are right here. Wherever, away from wherever the shadow is. Wherever the light source is, sorry. There we go. Let's take a step back. Just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the shadow work. And you'll notice that the shadow work plays a huge role in making it more interesting, right? We'll even put a little shadow on this one as well. And then don't forget to put it on the actual stamp itself. Okay? That way the stamp will be show extra lighting, extra shadow work. Okay, there you go. Got some shadow work there. Shadow work in here. I think that looks good for now. Okay, that looks good. Now let's do some highlights. And what I would do here is that you can take this, let's actually use the line tool. We're gonna go with color. Oopsie, we're gonna go with color. We're gonna choose yellow, because the campfire has a yellowish glow to it. We're going to choose blend mode overlay. We're going to go up a layer, and I'm going to put down one real quick just to see what it looks like. Let's bring up that. Let's bring the blur up. We're going to make it more and more blurry. There we go. We're also going to bring the opacity down. There we go. And then we're going to take that and we're going to put it right like this. That way we can get a little bit of a highlight on the map. So yellow, overlay, a little bit of highlights. That looks good. A little bit of highlight right here. Some highlights all along here. Here, here. There we go. It's got some nice lighting. Add in some highlights here. Looks good. Okay. I think all the highlights look good. And then we'll add some highlights here as well. There we go. And then some here as well. Okay. Maybe a little bit more right there, and then some here as well. One more right there. There we go. Okay. So now you got some highlights going on there. I'm going to quickly save it, and then we'll do the last bit of details, and then we're going to call it good. I feel like there needs to be more going on. The test stroke. Oh, that would be the dashed line. I'm guessing that's what you meant, Typher Zero. I'm leaving the dash line there to kind of show, but you could get rid of it if you want to. It's totally up to you. If you don't like the dash line, I'm guessing you mean this dashed line right here that represents the spine or the crease. You can delete it. You can keep it. If you don't like it, delete it. If you want to keep it there, oh, the yellow highlight. Oh, the test one. Oh, I don't know where that went. It's in here somewhere. I lost it. But you guys get the general idea on how to do it, right? You could also do shadow work with the line and shape tool as well with black and overlay or whatever color you want to use. So just so you know, you don't have to use the top layer. It's up to you on which one you want to use. I personally mix match, just depends. If you are going to use the map again for a different type of day or something like that, then yeah, you might want to maybe use the line tool instead of the top layer, because that way you can delete those if you're wanting to change the light source instead of having to erase everything. So kind of not a bad idea to use the shape or line tool. It's just up to you. Everyone has personal preferences, right? Let's find a broken cart. Oh, I said chart, my bad, cart. Let's see here. I like this one right here. This looks good. And I'm going to put it somewhere, maybe right over here somewhere. Let's see, how big is this? It's about 5 feet right there. Okay, 10 feet. That's not too bad. And then I can go and put this right here. I can put it over here in this corner. I can place it over here if I want. It's up to you. It's just something else that the players can kind of interact with. And I'm going to aim it to where it's kind of pointing towards the fire pit or towards the fire there. Kind of a little extra thing that you can kind of do there. I want to paste that towards the fire, just like that's facing towards the fire, those beds and stuff. So we'll put that there, right there on the road. And then let's see here, some last bit of stuff. Let's go ahead and decorate the trees with more flowers. I do this one a lot. I love to put like white flowers in trees, like a dogwood. So I can go saturation, brightness. And you guys remember that trick. You're going to have some be big, and then you're going to have some be small. So, and what's really nice with the white is that the white is pure white. It's a neutral color. And so it'll match really nicely with it. And you can also do some more detail work with this. If you wanted to, you could have the flowers that are on the darker part of the foliage, just bring the brightness down. See? So if a flower is up high on the foliage, make it brighter. If it's lower on a branch that's darker, then bring the brightness down, right? Another great way to show depth. Remember, contrast is that trick. And you notice that those white flowers really pop out, really giving it more contrast, more pop. And of course, maybe you want to have some flowers on the ground, right? The elements happen, wind, rain, things fall down. So bring the brightness down even more, and then place some on the ground. Just make them a little bit darker color so that it kind of represents that they're farther down. They wouldn't be the same brightness as the one on top because they're higher up and in more contact with the light. So make them just a little bit darker, place them around like this, and then you have the flowers that fell down. All right, so we're getting there. A lot getting done there. Last thing is that maybe since there's a campfire, that doesn't make any sense to have it during day. So maybe you want to take a filter. We want to go to the night filter like this, and maybe we want to take it down a layer. Well, let's put it this layer here. Oops, I'm kind of noticing a mistake here. Let's go ahead and take these top flowers right here, and we'll take them down a layer. There we go. Same thing with these flowers. We'll bring them down a layer. Just want to make sure that they're being affected by the filter. That's the trick. Oopsie, let's just, I'm going to go select all from this set. There we go. We're just going to go down one layer. Oopsie, that's not the layer, my bad. There we go. Okay. And now you can see that's affected. And of course, you can always take more light sources to give that extra thing. So I'm going to boost up the brightness. And we'll add a little bit of more light here just to give it more dynamic kind of feel to it. There we go. And now you have your book battle map with your a night scene if you want it to be night or whatever you want it to be, okay? All right, so pretty easy to make the book. The book part only took about 15, 20 minutes, maybe 23 minutes to make. Super easy. The part that's going to take you a little bit longer is, of course, actually putting together the book or the battle map part. And remember what I said at the beginning of the stream, if you're not certain like what kind of theme you want the book to be, it's all about the battle map that you're going to be making. So because I did this forest one, I think it's okay to just have blue and gold. It's kind of a generic colors that work well together. But I could have made the trim, that trim or the what's called the box part where the yellow is, that could be green. That could have been blue. That could have been whatever color you want. So just remember that the book can fit the theme of the battle map. Just remember what I said earlier. Always make sure that you have multiple clones of the template so that way you don't have to keep erasing stamps and then make another one and then keep doing that. So always have copies of these clones so that you can use them, okay? All right, well, hey, that is it for book battle maps. I hope you found this useful. If you like other book type of maps, we can also do an isometric book map masterclass as well. And also we've gotten some requests from people to change up the calendar a little bit. So what we'll do is we'll probably do part 7, part 8, and part 9, all of creating an epic world so that way people don't have to wait a whole 30 days again for the next episode. I think that would be helpful. So that way we can kind of move that forward and then we can kind of get that going and then we can get on with other world building series as well. Okay. All right. So, hey, thank you everyone. I hope you found this useful. I will see you all on Friday. So please stay safe and healthy and merry map making. Okay. Thank you everyone. Take care and I will see you later.